the company. It's, as I mentioned before, in the long run, it's simply it amounts to a better way of doing business, and your 1/3 or 1 cent really does add up.
Okay. Well, let me ask, I will ask Chris and Bruce, their view. Outsourcing is, I can tell you, a major concern in this country. Is ESOPs and worker-owned companies that happen to them?
I think there was a study done in Vermont in 2005 by the Sustainable Jobs Fund, and it looked at communities in Vermont that had the dominant employer as one employer in their community, and the risk of ownership transition. The owner is getting near retirement age. And so there's 60 or so different communities that are reliant on one company. And a number of those companies have turned over since that time. I think our nation needs a national study to look at retiring owners and what do they do as an option. And I think local ownership, employee ownership is a good strategy to root our companies. Those companies, you could plan ahead. That we heard about ownership over time as being sold to their workers. And I think if you strategize with those employers, we've heard examples of people having that forethought, but we need the market research and then follow through. And that requires the employee ownership centers.
Right, but the choice here would be an owner could sell to a large company, which could eventually shut down that plant to be more profitable operating in China, or that owner could sell to a worker-owned company that would stay in it.
Without a doubt, and I think Gardner Supply is a good example. That could have been sold many times over to an out-of-state firm, and they've sold it to their workforce, and they're growing at this point.
Chris, your thoughts about
a couple of vignettes come to mind are examples. The largest ESOP we have in Massachusetts is a company called Nitro. They manufacture plastic injection molded pieces. They started with the Gillette throwaway razor, actually. Make medical equipment and cell phone casings and the like. They've got 1,100 people in Clinton, Massachusetts. They've been able to minimize offshoring. I mean, they're a worldwide company, so they actually do have to follow some of their customers around the globe and set up across the street from where they're doing plants. But I just heard from them that they've had their best year ever. And interestingly, their Massachusetts operation, their Clinton operation, which is their largest operation, is outcompeting China. And what that company has done, which is, because ownership alone is obviously not going to solve all these problems, they've invested heavily in training for their employees so that the higher value added stuff, the breaking technologies, if you will, in their business is happening close to home. And that's how they've been able to avoid it. One other thought that is probably applicable to Vermont, a company called Light Control that manufactures architectural lighting fixtures. Fantastic company, 200 people down near Plymouth on the way to Cape Cod. They've survived and they've done fairly well, but we found out that they get about, while they make all of the components that go into public schools throughout Massachusetts, they've got about 1.5% of that business. And so we brought the governor's people in and some folks and saying, what can be done to inventory local manufacturing that can be servicing government procurement, at a state and federal level. And there are, I would urge my colleagues at the Vermont Center, if you haven't done it already, to go about that business and to look at what your community employment companies does already and see about how our tax dollars at the state and federal level might go to keeping the jobs.
Excellent point. We can bring the mic down. All right, what I want to do now is, again, let me mention, I want to thank Ted Brady from Senator Leahy's office for being here, and Brent Raymond from Congressman Welch's office. We thank them for being here as well.